ladies, gents, and non-binary mates, and welcome back to Beauty in the Bookcase, where we take a book and we make a look. Now, before we get started, make sure you follow me on all of my social medias so you know exactly what I'm getting up to when I'm not on YouTube. So today's book was actually written by Grady Hendrix. He is originally from South Carolina, and he spent a lot of his childhood actually in libraries, so no doubt that kind of fueled his desire to become a writer. Now, with that said, Hendrix actually didn't start writing fiction. He actually had a career as a journalist first, and then he started collaborating with different authors in anthologies and that type of stuff, until eventually in 2014 he published this book, Horrorstör, which kind of was what launched him into stardom. And aside from writing, his own novels now, Hendrix is also working in different mediums, including screenplays, and he even had his own podcast back in 2020. As usual, we're going to start with a little summary, so if you haven't read the book, spoiler alert, I try to keep certain spoilers out, but I can't tell you what the book is about without, spoiling it for you. So, modeled after all of those frickin' Ikea catalogs you took home and never looked at again, this book is all sorts of interesting inside and out. Every chapter actually is named after a made-up product, but what starts off as just kind of regular furniture, then halfway turns into nightmare fuel, which is great. The story takes place in this Ikea knockoff store called Orsk, and this specific store is in the home of Corn and Murder, also known as the state of Ohio. So, like many retail employees, Amy, who is our main character, is just kind of stuck in the never-ending cycle of working retail. She sees it as a job and as a way to pay her bills, but she's not really very passionate about working for this massive corporation, and honestly, who could blame her? And really, the only thing that Amy hates more than Orsk is her manager, Basil, who swallowed so much of the company BS that he's basically like a walk-in, talk-in, freaking handbook. Amy is actually waiting on a transfer to a different store when the book begins, and she's just kind of trying to get through each of her days in peace and not really have to, deal with too much. However, her coworkers kind of have different ideas. Trinity and Matt are a little busy kind of discussing these reality TV kind of ghost hunting shows, and also shamelessly trying to hook up while in the store, which is weird. And then Amy and Ruth Ann, who's the other coworker, get actually called into a meeting with Basil, and they kind of start panicking because they think they're both fired. Amy especially, because she admits she's not the best at her job, or she doesn't do her best. But what they actually end up finding out is that Basil had called them both in because he wanted to ask them to stay late that night. So at Orsk, there has been an uptick in vandalism. So every day that they come in, they kind of see issues with the furniture, and there's writing on the walls of the bathroom, and all these types of things that you don't want happening in your store. And Basil thinks that there's somebody just breaking in after they close and vandalizing their merchandise. So he says that for extra pay, they're going to have to stay the night with him. Now, while it was supposed to be just them, Trinity, obsessed with her dream of getting her own reality TV kind of ghost hunting show, and Matt, obsessed with getting with Trinity, actually ended up sneaking into the store to perform a seance because they believe that there is paranormal activity happening at the store, and they want to catch it on video so they can get a show. Or really, Trinity can get a show. And originally, everyone else is just kind of the fuck? Live your dreams, but this is dumb. But to be completely honest, the rest of the night goes on, and what ensues as an ex-retail employee is quite frankly worse than Karen's on Black Friday. So first and foremost, Horrorstör is very much a satire about essentially retail culture. So this totally not Ikea knockoff is filled with posters kind of, I mean, y'all know if you've worked retail or even if you've just been to a store, you know, it's all this like company BS about how everyone's family and we believe in like teamwork and friendship and the power of love and
when you're here, you're family.
You know, but it's not actually like stuff that they put into practice. And then of course every kind of product description is very like excessive, you know, it's a lot of like, oh my god, you need this couch in your house because it's gonna like blow your freaking mind, and you know, you gotta buy this love seat because it's gonna change the way you live forever. Which obviously not, but hey, that's marketing for you. And so we actually get to explore this kind of like retail shtick narrative from two opposite ends. So we have Basil and Ruth Ann kind of like for it, and then Amy is completely against it. So for Basil, you know, his job is not just a job, you know, he's not just kind of going there to make his money and go home. He really has made a career out of it. He's climbed the ladder, so to speak. And, you know, he really does care about his team. You know, he's very loyal, not just to the company, but to the people that, you know, he works with, and he feels responsible for them and protective of them. And he feels really frustrated with Amy throughout, because while he's kind of devoured a piece of the company pie and, you know, kind of really stuck it out like his life depended on it, and well, who knows, maybe it does, he feels that Amy's kind of uninspired attitude is really frustrating, not because, you know, he's annoyed that she doesn't care, but because he sees potential in her to actually grow to become a manager, kind of, you know, the role that he's currently doing, because he genuinely believes that she has the skills. She just doesn't really take it seriously, and she doesn't want to put in the work, or so he thinks. So like I said, Ruth Ann also kind of falls for this like we're all family here shtick, but in a different way than, you know, Basil. Basil kind of believes in the company, and he believes that the people he manages are really, you know, his family, and that he has to look out for them. Whereas Ruth Ann, we later find out, she's just kind of a very lonely older lady, and essentially her social life depends on going to work, interacting with her coworkers, interacting with customers. And so to her, the company means a lot because it kind of does give her a purpose, and it does give her a sense of community, even if it's not really because of the way that the company is set up. You know, it's not, obviously the posters aren't what are giving her that feeling, but it's, you know, it's good for her. Then on the other hand, we have Amy, who, you know, she kind of is like, okay, well, I'm making minimum wage, so you're getting minimum effort from me. She is kind of just fed up, you know, with the whole dealing with angry customers and repetitive tasks. However, Amy's disillusionment with this company doesn't end up being unfounded. After the horrible night that they spent at the store, essentially like the higher ups come in and they try to pay Amy and Basil off. So they're like, hey, we're gonna give you a cushy office job, so, you know, a promotion, more money, and all that, if you don't tell anyone what happened here tonight. You know, we're just gonna make something up, make it sound nice. We'll just say like a, you know, a pipe burst or something, and that's it. You don't have to tell anybody what actually happened. However, of course, because Amy was there and she had to survive quite a traumatic night and, you know, all this loss and this grief that she kind of goes through, she's really, I wouldn't say shocked, kind of like disappointed but not surprised. You know, she's like, no, I'm not gonna take your money and your cushy job to, you know, to help you save face, because that's like disrespectful to the people who actually suffered tonight. Like, the fuck? However, Amy initially thinks that Basil kind of fell for this whole like, we're gonna solve all of the trauma you had tonight with an ergonomic chair and like a standing desk. She later on finds out that Basil's kind of interpretation of that family culture wasn't that deeply rooted in like actual loyalty to the company, but in loyalty to his employees. But I expected it to be focused, of course, on actual plot as opposed to character development, but I think this book actually has a pretty good balance of both. I was really impressed, especially with Amy's character development. I think oftentimes we kind of get these like snippy, sarcastic, you know, kind of indifferent characters, and they don't really show a whole lot of growth throughout the book. They're like, they'll still be snippy and they don't necessarily learn a lesson, even if they, you know, accomplished whatever task the plot wanted them to. So as I mentioned, you know, Amy is super disinterested at the start in having any type of relationship with her coworkers beyond just like, you know, maybe asking them for like a price check or something. And her aversion to Basil is the most palpable throughout. He tries his best to like reach out to her and try and be friendly and nice, of course, while still kind of doing his job and having to tell her, hey, you're late, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. But, you know, Amy's still very resistant to this. She just doesn't see the point in really forming connections with these people. But the first person to kind of really, you know, get to her in a positive way, I mean, is Ruth Ann. She, even from the get-go, you know, we have this meeting where she thinks she and Ruth Ann are gonna get fired, and Amy immediately stands up and goes like, listen, I know that I'm an awful employee and you can fire me. That's fine. I understand why. But like, don't fire Ruth Ann because she's actually good at her job and she cares about it, and like, it would be super unfair of you to do this. And Amy herself kind of admits that she was shocked that she did that because she didn't really think that she cared. And I think that's a really good setup then for what we see throughout. You know, you even have a moment where Ruth Ann kind of lashes out, I guess, or like sasses Amy for her kind of like shitty, I don't care about anyone or anything kind of apathetic attitude, you know. She kind of shows her why she shouldn't be that way, or like, she's like, I'm over it, you're kind of acting like a kid and it's ridiculous. And while earlier iterations of Amy might have kind of, you know, lashed out or been really upset or whatever, you know, we have this Amy who's been able to kind of get to know Ruth Ann more throughout the story so far, and she's able to you know, take it in stride and be like, yeah, well, maybe she has a point, you know. And I think ultimately Ruth Ann helps Amy learn that although Orsk might definitely be kind of this soulless company that's just out there to make money, be greedy that way, you know, its employees aren't like soulless robots who are, you know, nothing outside of the company, if that makes sense. Now, her relationships to Trinity and Matt are pretty, I mean, I don't think they change a little bit, but I think Trinity and Matt aren't like, don't play, I should say, such an important role in this story. However, her relationship with Basil changes a lot. So there's, I guess, kind of a psychological thriller aspect to this book. There's these sections where the torture that the characters, particularly Amy, have to endure is less physical and more psychological. And over we see Amy kind of wanting to give up and fall into the mental traps of her not being good enough, or, you know, being lazy, or being stuck working retail forever and having no future and all that type of stuff that's kind of going through her mind. And yet we see Basil each and every time not giving up on her because he sees this potential and because he wants something more for her. And yeah, I mean, I think one of the most interesting changes then is that despite Amy throughout the book, even all the way toward the end, you know, she's kind of fighting any type of feeling, like positive feeling toward Basil. I think ultimately she does realize that his loyalty is indeed with his employees and not with the company, and that he would never, you know, he takes his job seriously, not for like, you know, greedy reasons or like financial, kind of like, you know, like for the best interest of the company, but because he genuinely wants and to care, and he feels responsible, and he would never let one of his team members down, or, you know, let them kind of take the fall even without trying to at least take some responsibility in saying, you know, here's where I might have failed, and that's why this happened. A tale as old as time. Somebody decided to build something on top of some type of like graveyard or sacred place or whatever. Now, usually I think stories take the route of like the haunted graveyard, kind of like a Native American sacred land type thing. In this case, Orsk was built on top of like an old panopticon prison, and whoever thought that was a good idea has never seen a horror film before. Now, Orsk itself is haunted by this, I guess, the people who basically died in this prison, so the prisoners and their warden. Now, you know, give a man power, he'll go on a power trip. We all know this. It's not, you know, news. However, some people take it a little bit too far, and the warden in this story is one of those people. So essentially, he kind of believed that prisoners had to have their diseases basically tortured out of them. So, you know, modern day prisons either use, you know, rehabilitation or labor as the ways to like deal with the prisoners, right? You're either kind of like work to pay off your debt to society, or, you know, you're kind of in a process of rehabilitation so that you can go back and join society. So this warden did not believe in either of those things. His thing was torture. You know, you did a bad thing, you get tortured. The torture will basically take out your desires to commit crime out of you. What happened though is that anyone with half a brain can kind of go like, hey, torture is not cool. Let's not do that. Even if the people are bad and did bad things, maybe not torture. So essentially the warden gets news that his prison is going to be shut down, and he's like, over my dead body, literally. So he essentially like floods the prison, drowning himself and all of the prisoners. So while throughout the day, you know, Orsk has its usual like perfectly curated displays of like your dream kitchen, or like look at this cute little nursery, at night the beehive, which is what he called the prison, comes alive, and it's pretty awful. So, you know, as the story progresses, all these horrible things happen, and that's where, you know, you kind of have that shift where the products start kind of becoming like psychotic, and those play like an important role in the story. And at the end, you know, you would think that the store closed down and people learned their lesson and went like, let's not use that place anymore. But of course they didn't, because capitalism. So instead of having a furniture store, they decided to build a baby store called Planet Baby, which I think is insane. But what do I know? And yeah, long story short, Amy goes back to work there, and she runs into Basil, and that's when she kind of realizes, oh, he didn't take the hush money either. And she's like, okay, respect. And essentially, like, it's implied that this cycle is going to begin again. Their hope is to kind of go back in and help those who were trapped or like left behind. So if you're looking kind of for like spooky, scary horror, I don't know that this is the book for you. I mean, I think it still has great layers of like psychological horror and just general like ick to kind of satisfy that desire a little bit. You know, it's not the kind of thing that's gonna give you nightmares and keep you up at night, but it might make you terrified of walking into an Ikea again, which will bring you a little closer to me, because I tend to have panic attacks at Ikeas because they're too big. I don't like department stores. They're massive and full of people. Woohoo! So, what's it all about? At its core, I would say that Horrorstör is obviously a story about all like the company bullshit and kind of like company greed and all those types of very like capitalism bad type things that if you've worked retail, you know, and you know, speak to you. But I think beyond that, Horrorstör is also a story beyond the actual store, and it's about it, you know, its employees and the people who live there and who work there and their commitment to each other and their loyalty and growth. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe for more bookish content like this, hit that notification bell so you know when I upload next, and I will see you all next time.